It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Hey everybody, welcome to the UGA Sports Live Podcast here from Champy's on Baxter Street. My name is Rodney DeBulsi. I will be your host for the next hour. I'm joined by Jake Roos, the recruiting superstar at UGAsports.com, who has some very interesting takes on a lot of Georgia targets, including a couple 5 stars that you'll want to pay attention to. Go ahead and send him some questions while you're at it. And Coach Donnan makes his triumphant return. He's been out for a couple of weeks taking care of some stuff. He is back, and everyone's happy to have him. I know you folks are happy to have him, the former head coach at the University of Georgia, back in with us to talk actual football. No speculation, no he said, she said, no any of that. We actually have football. We have practice. We have scrimmages, Coach. We have things are actually happening on the football field, and it's not just talking season. So we have a lot to talk about. Stick around for the next hour. If you would, go ahead and share this on the – you're on the 365 Game Day page. Share this with your friends. We'd very much appreciate that. And if you're on YouTube, sorry for the sound. We'll get that fixed up. But we're trying to get more on our YouTube page. Subscribe to that if you would. Big shout out to our sponsors, Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, Cable East, and Game Day Condos. If you need a place to stay in town when you come up for some of these games, check out the Game Day Condos. It's the only hotel, if you will. There's a bunch of condos. They rent them out like hotel rooms that is Georgia-themed, top to bottom. You walk in, it has gear, Georgia gear everywhere. They have a shuttle to the stadium. You can't beat it. The prices are cheaper than staying at a hotel if you're getting 2 days. So check out Game Day Condos, a new sponsor here at UGAsports.com. So stick with them. I'm going to skip Jake, although I know because he's sharing this with everybody. Has to.
Please do.
And we're going straight. Well, we're sharing letting everybody know that we're online.
Yeah.
So he's sharing that. Hey, everybody, come check out the show. And I want to go straight to you, Coach. Football's here. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's good to be back with you guys, and I appreciate everybody's concern and thoughtfulness, with my family situation. My wife's back home and doing well. I had really good support from my entire family. My daughters have done a great job with helping take care of her, and hopefully we're going to be able to get a good plan here going into the future. I would also like to thank the Lawrenceville Fire Department and all the people involved in helping her get to the hospital. They just did a terrific job. And so anyhow, as far as the football is concerned, I've tried to keep in touch with, through some sources, but it's not been a real priority for me like it normally is. But fortunately, the last week or so, I've been able to find out a few things. And just one of the realities of having a really good football program, a top 5 program, which nobody can even question that we're not that, is the fact that your day-to-day competition really has a good side to it, but it has a bad side. The good side is you're always going against comparable talent that you're going to face in the big games daily, and all the competition that you go through, whether it's one-on-one, pass rush, for the offense defending against guys, whether it's pass skeleton, whether it's goal line, 2-minute, whatever it is, you're going against similar talent, so that's good. But the bad part of it is, we've had 15 spring practices, and now we've had 8 or 9 practices. We're going to have 28, 29. So you have a potential of 44 days of going against the same guys every day. So
right.
The recognition factor and the awareness is there for both sides. There's not a lot of surprises out there, so it just gets down to execution. And some days one side does a little better than the other, but the competitive nature of our practices, as I've told both of you guys in the past, is something that I think really gives us an edge in preparation, and the fact that we get so much work against each other in a very controlled atmosphere that's really dedicated to every day some kind of football situation that really helps our team get ready for the season. And Kirby does a terrific job of of utilizing his expertise of preparation through the coaches he's been around. So I think sometime when we hear about, well, the scrimmage wasn't what we needed it to be, or blah, 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 part of that was the fact we're going against each other. Part of the fact they're looking at some new things with different people and personnel groupings. And the other thing, it was HOT out there, and it was really a very hard to keep your focus there, you know. So, but I've seen a lot of good things in the few times that I've been there this year. But I was all as I mentioned, both you guys. I'm gonna get to this. In the summer, I was able to see more than I normally was because I was able to go over there and watch some of my players that were in camp. Had their sons here, so I got to watch some 7-on-7. So some things right out of the box. Two guys really going to help our offense. I really think George Pickens is going to be there and be a source, not just because his one-on-one ability to catch the ball, but his just awareness, reading coverages. He's a very striking performer. I like Blaylock.
Big target.
I like Blaylock, the way he's been able to jump in there. Very knowledgeable guy. Has got that it factor to him. He knows how to get open. He'll jump in there. Those two guys, to me, are the freshmen that could really help us very quickly. Part of the fact we got a position there of need. On defense, no question that Dean, Smith, and Stevenson are guys that are just going to jump out right off the bat. Stevenson, great cover guy. Dean got good awareness inside, can run to the ball. And then Smith is just a presence on the outside. So those five guys have gotten my attention. Some guys that have made improvement and really jumped out from spring to fall. I really like what Fitzpatrick's been able to do. The fact that he has been challenged to jump up and do something, and he's got to. And he really has shown me a lot, being able to get that red shirt out of the way and still grow and develop. And then the fact that Harrion, even though we know what he's capable of, he's really accepted the challenge and understands what his role is. But he's been very good throughout the spring and the fall of making plays. He made a long run the other day. But he's money in the bank guy that you got. So those two on offense, and then Mikael Carter on defense has really stepped up and looked good to me. Knows it's his time, and he's jumped in there, and I think he'll be in the rotation.
That would be huge to get Mikael Carter actually with productive snaps.
And so I think those things have happened. Now some guys that really have jumped out a little bit more too is the fact that I think that if Daniels and Johnson can get more consistent, they're going to really help our depth and their experience that they've had of being in a JUCO situation.
So DJ Daniels and Jermaine Johnson, right, the cornerback and the outside linebacker.
So that'll help us there. So our kicking game looks tremendous. Both these guys are doing a good job. Our kick return is going to be good. So, I just want to come in here today and say, James Brown, I feel good.
There you go. And that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we need. and all of a sudden, 57 people just tune out and go run through a wall. So that's how it works.
We still got a way to go, though.
No, but it's a good point because I like that if you're a Georgia fan and you're listening to this on your ride home or you're working out or you're watching it on 365 game day, you got to be excited about what Coach just said because look at the areas that he just mentioned. Nakobe Dean, inside linebackers, an area where you might need to pick it up a little bit. Outside linebacker, Nolan Smith, 5-star guy, need to pick it up. First off, you named George Pickens and Dominic Blaylock, two wide receivers. Georgia has very little experience in the receiver ranks, an area where Georgia needs help. Georgia needs help with the tight ends. You mentioned John Fitzpatrick.
I like Wolf, too.
Oh, no. I'm just saying that some of the guys you named, and I'm not saying we're putting anybody down. I'm just saying the guys you signaled out or in areas of need for Georgia. And one of our biggest questions was, who's the number 2 running back? Because you're not going to run DeAndre Swift 50 times a game, and some of these games you're going to be up by 2-3 scores. Who comes in? Georgia likes that, hammer and tong approach. And I know a lot of people are looking at Zamir White. He apparently had a very good scrimmage from what our sources were telling us. But I think people are overlooking Brian Harrion.
Yeah, I just like Brian Harrion. Every team's got to have a guy that is a money guy that's going to be no highs and lows, going to be consistent. I like that part about him. I like his attitude because everybody talks about these other guys. But when my opening monologue, whatever. I mean, I talked about things, but certainly two guys that really make my mouth water, Zamir White and James Cook. James Cook's ability to run inside is going to be really enhanced by the fact that, everybody talks about the strength and how much the guy bench, vertical jump, all that stuff. But the real value of a strength coach to me is each individual guy making him as good as he can be physically. So if you're a 170-pound guy, can you handle 185 and still run like you can? Or if
That's a good point.
If you're a 300 guy, can you put on 15 pounds and still move and all that? So our bulk situation with the skill guys is really evident. I mean, you look at a guy like Cook. I mean, a before and after picture of him would be impressive to me. But I think his ability. I've seen all these guys run over the years that can really run inside that aren't that big, because they got the quickness, but they got the toughness to take a blow and bounce out. And just going to be a good little counter to put Cook in there, and everybody's thinking he's going to catch a pass or go out and or run outside and then bust him up the gut. Most long runs are made when you bust the gut there, when you go right up the gut and the defense is over pursuing.
But see, we don't think about that, because when you see a guy break it to the outside, we were told in the scrimmage, DeAndre Swift only had a couple carries, but on one of them, he hit the line, bounced out, a la Sony Michel. So we put that in our notes. It's like, hey, he can bust it out like Sony Michel. But you see so many, not big gains, but 7-yard carries, 8 yards, 9 yards, first downs go to the outside. So someone like me who sees that, a guy running out of bounds or being tackled on the edge, you're like, run the ball outside. You get the 7 yards. But then,
that's the new run the damn ball.
Exactly. But then you're right. When you go back and you look at Swift's highlights, Chubb's highlights, Sony Michel's highlights, they are up the middle. The safeties are out of position or can't catch up, and it's a 50-yard, 60-yard gain. Those are usually up the middle. And with the wide receivers doing their jobs.
Yeah, and that enhances the weight program, enhances his ability for these guys to block on the perimeter. Simmons, all those guys. But I would project that I can see more big plays from this team than any that I can remember, because they're going to be ganged up with 8 in the box to stop that run. It's the only way you're going to against these big old guys up front. And then you hit those play-action passes deep, or you make the big runs if they just so happen to get a tie with everybody, and then you make a guy miss in the open field. So I like our big play. And what I love as a play caller for a guy like Coley is if you got to make 70 and 80-yard marches the whole game, it's hard to get the right play every time. You know what I'm saying? And you got a built-in quarterback out there in Jake that and Stetson Bennett can call the game at the line. But you got the ability to hit these home run balls really is enhancing, and then that helps your defense, because we're going to be playing from ahead a lot this year. I really think that our defense is going to be in a situation where that team's going to have to catch up with us, and when that happens, that's when you get a lot of plays on defense too. So the combination of the two, and I don't want to get overboard here, but I just feel like with our schedule and our competitive practices, and as long as we can stay at this point, we've been very fortunate on the injuries. I just feel like our team is where we need to be, and certainly Kirby would say, he wants to see a great day every day at practice, and that's for sure. Well, I do too, but I'm encouraged by the athleticism on the back end, the fact you guys got these corners have made dramatic improvements. We talked about last year the fact that all these defensive backs started to make progress, but we're so much more athletic back there. And you got a guy. Here's another guy, and our safeties are so much bigger and stronger than they were. Last year we had guys that were a little slimmer, and now just bigger.
Yeah, you mentioned one guy in particular, and that's James Cook, and he was a guy. He came in last year. He was light. No, there's no question about it. When he got here, it looks like he's totally reworked his body. And one of the things that I think people forget about sometimes is not that his brother's Dalvin Cook. I think that's pretty hard to forget. But that Dalvin came in similarly sized to James when he got to Florida State. We had him at 5'11", 192 coming out of high school. Yeah, and James came out at about 5'11", 181. So about 9-pound difference between the two of them. And you see what Dalvin was able to turn into over the course of his time in Tallahassee. I think James is putting on the correct weight to put himself in that position as well.
I like if you go to UGASports.com, which, by the way, they're running a deal right now. It's normally $99 for the year. You can get 25% off, which makes it $75. But they're also going to give you a $75 gift card to the Adidas fan shop. So if you want any Adidas gear, the shoes, the jackets, the shirt, Adidas.com. Anything you want from Adidas, that 3-stripe life, you get a $75 gift card there. So your effective cost is $0. So go to UGASports.com, sign up. The promo code is Adidas, ADIDAS. Sign up. So, again, they're giving you 25% off right off the bat, which is a hell of a deal. And then they're going to give you a $75 gift card.
Get your kids some back-to-school clothes.
Yeah, exactly. And now, here's the thing. If you have not been following our coverage of camp, then you missed out a lot. We have, 2,500-word practice reports. We have stories. We have photo galleries. We have video. We have more reporters there than a lot of outlets combined. Point being, no one covers UGA football like UGAsports.com, so come by and check it out. We had a great insider report. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to say who it was, but a lot of people were able to see the scrimmage. The media was not allowed to. A lot of those people are friends of the site. They're members of the site, and they are people who I trust, and they came out and told us some of the things that they saw in practice in the scrimmage.
Coach, one thing you need to point out, too, that the one thing that I've always told you, and no matter what you try to do to get blood out of me, I'm never going to tell you what I see in practice.
We've tried.
And I feel like I don't try to go over there much, but I like to be around it. But I would never, I just don't think that's anybody's business for me to say that. But if you get it from somebody else, go for it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We had multiple people tell us what they saw in practice. And none of it was, hey, here's what they're doing in 3rd and long, but it was observations. James Cook had a huge run. Zamir White had a big run.
I think everybody saw one thing from that practice.
We told everybody before anybody else. We said, look, there was a crazy one-handed catch by George Pickens in there. That video of that leaked out.
How did that get out?
No idea, but as obviously somebody was filming it like from a TV thing. So
I'd hate for that. I'd hate to be that guy.
Yeah, so whoever did so, that got out and people went crazy. But there was a couple of our notes. Coach from his sources heard the same thing. You're going to have to put 8 in the box to stop this team because they're running it. And Kirby Smart said the running game looked good. And everything we heard about James Cook, Brian Harry, and DeAndre Swift was about Zamir White was about them running the ball well. We also heard that James Cook could take it inside. And that was a kind of surprise to me. Didn't hear anything about the O-line or D-line, really. Other than the O-line ran the ball well, but with no defensive linemen were called out for that.
You're not going to see that, though.
But you got to remember, our sources are people who – tend to pay more attention
usually
to
watching the cheerleaders.
Yeah, watching cheerleaders. Or you watch the skill positions.
Yeah.
When the game's over, you tend to do that. Hey, what do we got over there, Jake?
We got the 4-piece basket today with some fries, a little bit of buffalo sauce, and some of that extra tasty Champions sauce. You got to love that stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, though.
Hey, folks, when you're coming to the games, about Champions.
People talk about our line of scrimmage. There's been so much talk about our offensive line and defensive line. I'm really encouraged by the way Walker's looking. He's just a player.
Yeah.
Trayvon
Walker's a big kid.
And like I said, Carter, and getting Marshall back is going to help us from a leadership. All these guys are competing and working hard, and I just feel like our defense. To me, from a coaching perspective, just the back end in itself and the experience with Monty and Crowder, and then you got those other two, Walker and Tyndall, and then you add Dean in there. We're just going to be so much better inside against the run than we were last year because we can play more coverage behind it. Last year we were really playing to stop the pass because we had some areas of concern back there. Now I think our coverage is going to be good. Our pass rush is going to be better. I just predict a lot more lost yardage plays and a lot more turnovers by our defense.
All right, we'll hold you to that because that's just fun football to watch.
Havoc.
Havoc. I mean, it's I understand, the boring football is still winning football sometimes, but when you have those lost yardage plays and your defense is balling, when your offense is scoring and you get all excited, that's fun football too, but when your defense is actually wreaking havoc, the fans are going to be through the roof for that, and hopefully that's what we'll see.
It was just great coaching by Kirby, though. He knew what our defense was capable of and what it was incapable of, and we coached around our defense last year. That's why teams like Missouri were able to run the ball, but they couldn't throw a touchdown pass.
But we lost our minds, the entire fan base. Missouri can run the ball on us?
But I think
you took Drew Lock out of the game completely. So,
and, you look at our schedule and strength of schedule and all the teams we play. I mean, everybody's getting all jacked up about Florida and everything. I think Florida certainly has got some really good players, but you look at what's happened to them, too. They've had 9 guys enter the transfer portal since last year. One of them steal a really good corner. They played 4 teams this year that on the road that 2 of them they lost to at home last year, and 2 of them were very tight, South Carolina and LSU. And, they pick up Auburn in a crossover game. So they got to play at LSU and play Auburn at home, 2 of the top 3 teams in the West, and then they play us. I don't see them winning 10 games again. I mean, they might, but I just don't see it.
But now they have Brenton Cox, and everything is glorious.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Brenton Cox in 1 second, but I do want to mention something for anybody who's going to be in town this Saturday. Coming, I think it's Saturday. What's the 16th?
Yeah, let's make sure we get our dates correct. That'll be Friday.
Excuse me, Friday. So if you're in town on Friday, swing by Athens Ford. They're having their Dog Days of Summer event from 3 to 5. They're going to have the UGA cheerleaders out there. So, of course, Coach Donnan says the guys are looking at cheerleaders. That made me think of it. Harry Dog will be out there. The little ice cream dude. If you get a chance, go out there and help out the little ice cream dude. You're not even helping him out. He's going to give you free ice cream.
Yeah, and he's got his cool little thing. He's got a shop now.
Now, you got to understand, this is a kid I coached, Bo Shell, years and years ago. He started an ice cream business like 8 years old.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's like
that's why he's called the little ice cream dude. So he'll be out there giving out ice cream. Bees Walking Art will be out there. They're going to have tons of giveaways. Last year they gave away like these huge TVs, I believe, and stuff like that. So it's the Dog Days of Summer event. The place was absolutely packed last year. Food and fun and frolic at Athens Ford from 3 to 5 this Friday, August 16th. Go out there and check it out. Brenton Cox. We broke the news last week that he was no longer on the team. Kirby didn't meet with the press until Saturday, in which he said that he has withdrawn from the University of Georgia. 5 minutes later, he's at
he's on the roster.
The kid's on the roster at Gainesville. They're going to try to get a NCAA exemption and allow him to play this year. People are saying, well, how can he get one? I told you last week there is a possibility that happens. Now, I don't know if it'll be granted, but the NCAA has made some weird decisions before, and if they basically call it the runoff rule, where you have a situation where a kid transfers to another school. That school puts in for a waiver so the kid can not have to sit out a year. The school says, look, this kid was effectively run off. They recruited over him, and the kid says the same. The criteria is the kid left or kid had no chance of playing through no fault of his own, i.e. there was nothing academic and there's nothing disciplinary. All of a sudden, you basically just recruited better players, and he's not going to get a chance to play. The problem is, those are the first two. The kid has to say it happened. The school has to say it happened. The school he left has to say, yes, we got better players, and there's no problem with this kid leaving on his own. Mutual decision type things. I don't know if Georgia's going to give him that. Maybe they will. Point being, there is the spin that this was a mutual decision. This was not a mutual decision. Brenton Cox was kicked off the team. Something happened in practice. It was the straw that broke the camel's back from a long series of incidents. He's not there. If he plays at Georgia, more power to him.
Plays at Florida.
Plays at Florida. More power to him. I have no dog in the fight. I'm saying it is a possibility, but even then, I don't think that fixes all of Florida's problems.
No, not at all.
Hey, but this is Georgia board. Let's talk about Georgia players.
No, I'm just saying a lot of people are like,
But it's just
they're freaking out about Florida. I'm like, I just want to clarify. This was not a someone sent me a note saying, hey, your story's wrong. Brenton Cox was not dismissed. Florida people, he wasn't dismissed. He left, and Kirby's not. If he was dismissed, Kirby would say that. Like, no, Kirby's going to take a high road here and not, put the kids' dirty laundry out in public. I've got no problem doing it because we're journalists. We broke the story. We wouldn't have said he was dismissed if he wasn't dismissed, and he was. So don't let the spin fool you. When your coach takes the high road, do the same. Don't talk bad about the kid. Just let him go off and do his thing. He's no longer part of the program. You've got Nolan Smith over there. You've got Jermaine Johnson, Adam Anderson, Azeez Ojulari, Robert Beal. Your outside linebacker room is still pretty bloody good.
I would just add this, and I haven't talked to anybody at Georgia about this, but I know this, that every coach that I've ever been around, and Kirby is as good as I've ever been around, about caring about the kids and their own welfare. And there comes a point where, as the head coach of your team, you have to make decisions that are best for the team that sometimes aren't as good for the player, And in this case, it looks like to me Kirby, and his first situation is always the University of Georgia, and you got to look the other players in the eye too when you're at practice and all that. And I just feel like that you just don't let a guy go like that to Florida. I mean, you just don't let him go unless there's a reason, right?
Sure. No, yeah, absolutely.
We'll probably find out about that. But, I'm sure they're glad to have him. And for his sake, I hope that
he's an incredibly talented player.
Turns it around. And, you want the kid to have a shot. And he'll certainly have a shot down there. But I can't see how a guy could leave a team in the middle of August and still be eligible in another place. I mean, I just don't see what
I don't see. I'm just saying that people say it's impossible, it's against the rules. I'm saying there is a little-known rule that would allow it, but UGA would have to sign off on it. I'm like, if you're going to do that, then that's taking it beyond taking the high road. I
don't know that rule either.
Somebody had to send it to me. I went and looked it up, and it's not called the runoff rule. That has
colloquially it is.
That's what it's. That's the slang jargon for.
Right. Some pleasant stuff. But I will say this, and I don't read your site and everything, but listen to Roddy. I would say that Roddy was right on what happened. That's for sure. Let's go on.
All right, we got a bunch of questions rolling in, as you would expect. A lot of people excited the coach is back. I like this one from Orlando Dog over on the board at UGASports.com over on the vent.
He's been around forever.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
I want to make
that's Orlando Top Dogs.
This other statement here, which on a somber note.
Rest in peace.
When I first got here, I had a chance to look at the staff and see who I was going to keep. And one of the coaches that I kept was Daryl Drake, and unfortunately, Daryl passed away on Saturday night, and just a tragic deal. He's 62 years old. His wife Sheila, 3 kids, grown kids. But he was a tremendous help to me my first year. He was a great guy to talk to about what was going on with the players. He had their respect, and it really did hurt me that he had a chance to go be the coordinator of Baylor, so it wasn't anything I could do about that. But our heartfelt condolences to his family. And then another situation, which a lot of people here don't know this guy, but some of my friends in Oklahoma watch our show, and I lost a running back that was the best back that we recruited at Oklahoma at the time. Of course, we had some other ones, but Mike Gaddis passed away yesterday, 50 years old. He's the guy that when we played Oklahoma State and Barry Sanders won the Heisman Trophy, Barry ran for 237 and Mike ran for 217 in the same day there against each other. And just a real sad deal for me personally, and thoughts are out to his family too. You just never know what's going to happen. He had the kidney situation. Coach Switzer, I talked to him yesterday, and everybody just shocked about that. So let's go ahead here, but everybody in Dog Nation got to be proud of what Daryl Drake did for our team.
Absolutely.
No doubt. All right, Orlando Dog comes on, and he says, Coach, how difficult do you think it'll be for Fromm to adjust to a largely new and or inexperienced set of wide receiver and tight end targets? How do you see that playing out this year? Will he still be successful?
Yeah, I think he'll be, because they've had all summer to work through the plus and minuses of it. And the other thing that's going to be important for us is there's going to be some guys going down there with blinker lights on. They're going to be so wide open, so they don't have to be. You don't have to throw it in tight windows, because you're going to see a lot of one-on-one coverage and a lot of guys just breaking wide open, and so the ball doesn't have to be perfect, and he certainly puts it in there. But, some of those passes he threw to Holloman last year and against Florida were just indefensible, because of the way but I just think that we're going to have that's not going to be an issue. That could be an issue if we weren't able to run the ball that well. But we're going to have selective passing game based on the fact that we're going to be able to run the ball even if the other team knows we're going to run it. And that's the kind of offense you like to have, you know what I mean? Just the fact that just so completely physically built up front to run the rock.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I think this is a kid, he's dealt with change every year at this point. You figure it out. He's in his third year. At this point, he's right. Captaining the ship.
And he knows every nuance of every route. I mean, if a guy does something wrong, he can tell the kid right there on the field before a coach. He said, hey, you probably should have taken the inside release there or something like that. So that extra coaching that he brings to the table is going to make up for any problems that we might have there. And then you got a tight end in Werner who's really good at those underneath things. And, to me, it's like calling plays for us this year is going to be like Roddy going through a buffet. Do I get the key lime pie? Do I get what I get?
It's going to be productive.
And I remember in 2007 when I was doing a ESPN thing, and Southern Cal was playing Hawaii, and Reese Davis said, "Coach, what do you think they do in the huddle there with all those players? They had all those great players, and Matt Leinart was a quarterback." I said, "Well, this is what Matt does in the huddle, and this is what Jake comes on. Okay, whose turn is it?
Yeah.
What do you want? Is it? Have you been left out lately, Warner? I mean, we're just going to have to move it around some and be fair, but." We're probably not going to have some guys with really huge numbers because of that, but it's just a very good situation in the running game. It just sets up so much. I just love, it's hard to throw the ball when the other team knows you're throwing it. I don't care who you are. It's just the pass rushers are better. The defense plays deeper. Yep. But when they don't know if you're going to run or pass, that's tough.
Yeah, we've used that term nightmare for defensive coordinators, and you have a situation where, okay, it's 3rd and 3. I'm going to go, max to stop these guys. I'm going to bring my two safeties up, and when they still get it, by the third quarter, and then you're like, well, we got to do something different. But if we put in something that we haven't practiced as much, now we got an execution problem. I can just see, you start banging your head against the wall, because I'm calling the right play to stop them, and it's not working. What do you do at that point?
Yep. Most defensive coaches, though, are always going to look at trying to take away what you do best and force you to do something else, and that's going to be hard to do that, to take away our running game without going to an extreme 8-man box, particularly when you're outmatched these teams physically. Another thing that I think is really saying about our team, and I can see the evolution of this, and I want everybody to just stay with me here on this. Remember when Steve Spurrier first got in the league and they were throwing the ball, the fun and gun, and everybody's having trouble defensing it because this was a hammer and tong league, and you just didn't see a lot of the throwing game. And every year people got a little bit better at defending it. He still did a great job with it, but it got to be a situation where people saw it a lot more. The same thing with the spread. When the spread first came out and the no huddle, most teams just had one check, one thing that they would go to, and the offense knew that, and they were able to attack that defense knowing that check, because of the speed value, was going to be there. I remember when we played against West Virginia over there in the Sugar Bowl in Atlanta when it was moved there. And Rich Rod came out in no huddle so much against us because Van Gorder and those guys were just so big at playing against your formation and scheming you, but he couldn't do that against a no huddle, and they really attacked us. Same thing true with Nick and Kirby and all these Alabama guys. And Kirby used to talk to me about Nick wants to run all these defenses, but we can't practice them all against the spread because we can't get lined up. Now, after 4 or 5 years of evolution with the defense, our defense can now make checks, which are really good against the different looks when they get no huddle. So our defense is kind of like what we saw the defenses against Spurrier. We don't have to just play 1 or 2 calls against that. We can play all of our stuff and get to it. That's why we're a lot better at defending the spread.
Yeah, that's great stuff, and I like you point out, Georgia last year didn't get a whole lot of pressure on the quarterback, but did other things really well. That matches the article we had by Brent Rollins from Pro Football Focus. He said, look, you can look at Georgia being, 10th or 12th or 14th in the SEC in quarterback hurries, but they're also, in the top 10 in the nation in tackling and coverage. So you mentioned earlier that, Kirby plays to his strengths. Well, okay, maybe I can't get pressure on the quarterback, but when the ball's completed, or if the ball's not completed, it doesn't matter. And if the guy runs it, we're going to drop him at first contact. And all of a sudden, you have a top 10 rated defense because you got other areas you can fix. Now, if you bring up that pass rush to meet it, and you've got all your checks and stuff you can go into, I see why you're bullish on the defense. I'm still thinking about the guys that were lost, but you make a good point. And
I think this is true too. Mel Tucker, who's not here anymore, I remember he used to say last year to our defense, he said, we can't worry about Roquan not being here. We can't worry about this. He said, here's the bottom line. You're either on the field or you're off the field. If you're off the field, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So he wanted them off.
Thanks, Coach Tucker, for narrowing it down.
Let's get off the field and get that offense the ball.
No, I want to get to this question right before the Dirty Dog Dancing over on the board.
Dog.
Yeah. I've been a member now for 4 years, so we appreciate you being with us, Dirty Dog Dancing. He says, speaking of these defensive linemen getting more pressure on the quarterbacks, he said, what can we expect out of Malik Herring this season? Do you think Tyler Clark returns to 2017 form? Also, tell Roddy I tried out the Your Pie and Macon, and it was damn good stuff.
There you go.
That's good.
So that's our Your Pie commercial. That's unsolicited testimonial.
Malik Herring and Tyler Clark, what is it, I guess what are the expectations for those guys this season? I think, obviously, for Clark, the time's here. If you're going to deliver, you want to see him return to that 2017 form. Will he? I think the emergence of a guy like Mikael Carter could certainly help him.
I think last year, his head was in the, thinking about, hey, are you going to be able to come out or and go pro, all that. I mean, and that's not just he's a good kid, but I mean he didn't perform on that level maybe because maybe thought he was a little bit better than he was. I don't know that. I can't quote, but I do feel like the competition that's going against him now and the way that he's, it's a startling revelation when you don't have that big a year after you had a good year that, hey, maybe I need to do a little bit more or something like that. And I've really seen that effort by him in practice. And one thing I always like to look at when you got a drill is who's in the front of the line. Who's ready, just chomping at the bit to go knock somebody on their butt and not trying to get out of something as compared to somebody just kind of sashaying over there and, we only got 3 minutes left.
Marlo Herrera.
But I like the fact that Carter's jumping up in there, and looking like a senior leader. Same thing you got with, like I said, Marshall out there. And, just because you're the front of the line doesn't mean a lot. But to me,
but it's just effort on a hot day, and you're getting up to do extra reps when you're already established.
It's just the idea. I look for him, and I like Herring because, time's running out. And there's, you only got so many games and so many reps. So that there again, competition there is going to help both those guys. I think both those guys will have big years.
I like Herring too, for sure.
And we actually put in our 3-2-1. Somebody very deep inside the program said, "Hey, next time you talk to your fans, tell them Malik Herring's looking good." And I put that in my 3-2-1 because I'm like,
he is.
If anybody would know,
one of the things,
this guy would know.
And one of the things that people forget about Malik, because they've been waiting on him to finally turn it on, put it all together. That kid has about as versatile of a toolbox when it comes to his pass rush as anybody I've covered in the last 5 years. He's got moves for everything. He's very good at responding to what the guy gives him, but he's got a ton of ways to beat you on the defensive front, and I think that that's something he'll be able to tap into and show off this year.
Give me Jordan Davis in the middle with, David Marshall, Tyler Clark beside him, being spelled with, Tymon Mitchell, somebody like that, and then Mikael Carter. Julian Rochester. You're talking about the personnel. You're switching those guys out. They're in 2 plays and out, and they're coming in with fresh legs every time. That is
right.
That's a pretty nice change.
You have a tendency overbearing everybody talking about our O-line that they sometimes not talking about the people on our D-line in the same vein because
they weren't ranked as high, so they don't have the excitement.
You got a guy like Thomas in the top 3 or 4 in the country, and then Wilson I think is going to be right there too. So.
Yeah.
And then Kenley's having just unbelievable last year or so, just really functions on a level that's just hard to understand how he can be that consistent, but he is. And then big thigh in there in the middle, O'Hill. I mean, the human thigh guard. Yeah. And then, we got the competition at the right guard with Mays and Cleveland and then Salyer. And it's just a good situation, but I think you're talking about the D-line. You have a tendency to not really give them as much credit. And people think about the run game, so they automatically say it's the D-line that's letting up. But, again, it's more of scheme last year to me. The scheme was to make the other team beat us throwing the ball, and they couldn't do it. So we just at the end there against against Texas because we missed some of those guys, but
see, it doesn't make sense to the casual fan not going after the quarterback, not getting a sack. Your scheme is designed to make them throw. That just seems it's like, well, why not get a sack on every play?
Schemes to get off the field. But it also
hit it. Why not hit a hole in one every time you tee off?
How many times you got a Roquan Smith making every play that made up for a lot of things for us? But so every team's different. Every team's personnel wise is different. But athletically, our secondary is so much better than it was 3 years ago, night and day. 3 years ago. We got some guys on the third team now that would have been starting 3 years ago.
Yeah, we'll see you September 7th. Brent Tucker will be here. Big shout out to our folks over at Academia Brewing Company. I've noticed that they recently had the Hopprodisiac back in bottles. So if you get a chance, and we have some people that were looking for it, not bottles, in cans. So you get a chance to swing out there. But if you're trying to put something on your radar to do in September, they are hosting Athtoberfest, like an Oktoberfest, but in Athens. An Athtoberfest, over 25 bands will be there.
Really?
Yeah, so it's 3 whole days of music, beer, art, and food. Introducing Athtoberfest on the west side of Athens at Academia Brewing Company. It's free for all ages, outdoor and indoor festival. We'll have 25-plus bands, a Bavarian beer hall-style food, Oktoberfest beers, drinks, and vendors for the love of the west side.
That's awesome,
get a chance.
Some good bands playing. Wayuka is really good. I like She-He-He as well. There's some
Monsoon, Misnomer, Fudo, Caulfield.
Yeah.
Just follow Academia Brewing Company on Facebook, which is where they keep putting up all that great food. I mean, it is literally food porn. You look over there, you're like, whoa.
Oh, come on, don't talk.
I'm just telling you, it's the stuff they have there is, you drool out the corner of your mouth. So when you get a chance, check out Academia Brewing Company. You can get more information on their Athtoberfest 2019. I hope it's a big success. I'll be out there, I'm certain. And we had somebody already saying they tried the Your Pie out in Macon. Try it. Any Your Pie, there's we're closed in on 100 open locations now. Try any of them, and you will see why we are so excited they are sponsored the show. Drew and Natalie French, huge supporters of our site.
As well as Georgia football.
Georgia graduates, Georgia football, big supporters. We shout out to them because they have a great product. You will not be disappointed if you go out to a Europie location and have some lunch.
Something that just came across the wire. Rivals dropping the top 100 in the nation today, the updated version. Noah Sewell climbs into 5-star territory today.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Climbs up the list
gigantic linebacker.
very quickly. Huge Georgia target, 6'1", 260 out of Orem, Utah. A guy that the Bulldogs really want. Understandable why. I think nobody can really question.
Everybody wants it.
Yeah.
If he's not a 5-star, then Roddy doesn't like key lime.
Yeah. Also, Georgia commit Marcus Roseme with a huge jump in the rankings, up to 26th in the.
Where was he before?
28th in the nation. Roseme, I believe, was sitting right around the 50, 60 area. So climbs up about 30 spots.
He had a great deal that y'all you couldn't talk about him any better.
No,
when we
great
had
summer. Great summer.
So who do we have in the top 15 then?
5-star, the 5-star challenge, big for Roseme. Opening was great for him. Big jump for him. So that's just coming across right now. I'll pull up the Rivals 100.
Yeah, our recruiting though, you had it all the way on Milton. That was good, and still doing good on Evans. I mean,
have we got any questions about Evans?
Yeah, we got a few questions on Evans. So let's go ahead and touch on that. Zach Evans out of the state of Texas, Houston North Shore, one of the top players in the nation, the top back in the nation actually for the 2020 class, top 10 player nationally as well. A guy that has put in. Just dropped down to 13 actually. So tough year actually for the running backs. But
needs to be sweet.
A lot of people wondering, does this kid have a chance to land in Athens? I mentioned on the board yesterday, and I am starting to come around on this based on what we're hearing from guys like Sam Spiegelman with the sources that we've spoken to. I think that this kid is either coming to Georgia or he's staying in Texas. Those are the only two. That's my line of thinking at this point. I do like Georgia's chances right now. I think that coming off of that visit at the end of the summer, the late July visit, that was big. And I think that they kind of showed their hand a little bit about how they feel by what we saw with Tank Bigsby this past Friday. I think that him committing to Auburn was a little point and a little nod in the direction of, hey, you're talking about a guy, number one athlete in America, top 50 player in America, in-state, was really interested. It seemed like at the beginning of this
you're going to have to recruit for centuries.
Yeah,
exactly.
From a guy that at the beginning of the summer everybody felt was the guy. It commits to Auburn. That gives you, I think, a little bit of a signal about how Georgia feels about
decision, but I think if
that's where we are in the program, though. You and Kirby and Dale McGee, they got to look at who we got a chance at, and that's a tough call and who's to say that he would have come here? Who knows? But we're still in it with Evans. We're in it. We could still be in it with Lloyd. We could be in it with Chaney. We've already got Milton. White looks like he's ready to go now. So it's just, just like people ask, how could you get Fields when you had those other two guys here? Part of it's these kids want to come to Georgia, that's part of it.
Well, the other thing is, and I used the Alvin Kamara example last week, saying, look, he was the fourth running back they took in that class, but he didn't think he was number 4 out of that class. He figured he was number 1, and he's right. And so when you Evans, well, he's coming here and play with Milton, he might think that he's better. So he figures wherever he goes, he's probably going to be the best running back they got. So he's not worried about the competition. And if you can't beat out a kid at Georgia or Texas A&M or Florida or Alabama, you're not going to beat out people on the 53-man roster.
Right.
The great players don't worry about that.
That's
I've told you that before. And one of the things you always tell a guy, I said, look, you're not going to miss out on a chance to do – if you believe in yourself, you're not going to miss out on a chance to play behind this franchise offensive line. Somebody's going to be really good playing behind these guys, and why would you doubt your ability? We've proven we can play two backs. We've proven, if you go back through the history of Georgia, what's been able to be done with good backs and playing them. So I think that's more board talk than it is these kids about now. To be able to land both those guys would be astronomical.
That's when you build the Dale McGee statue.
We'll see what happens. But,
right next to the Sam Pittman one.
You look at Dale McGee, though, I mean, he's in on those two guys and the tight end from, of course, Hartley's working him too out of Las Vegas. But Dale's just a phenomenal recruiter.
And a hell of a coach.
I think he's probably the next guy here. I mean, I certainly several of these guys could be head coaches quickly, but I think with his background in Georgia and in the South, I think one of these schools are going to be taking him.
Somebody's going to take a chance on him. They're going to pay him a good amount of money,
handsomely rewarded.
And it's going to be it may not be a Florida-sized school, but it's going to be just under that. And all of a sudden, he is going to take them to heights they've never seen before. And when that guy is going to be – he's going to be a Kirby Smart.
He's in on every kid.
Dabo Swinney
He's in on every kid he recruits.
I told you. I thought – I know it was an unpopular opinion. I thought Georgia Tech should have given him a call. I think that he could have stepped right up. All right.
I tell you, Tech's got a good guy over there. I mean,
no, Collins has changed it.
Hey, anybody
Very
from
much.
Rockdale County High School is a good guy.
He worries me.
Dog goes woof over on the board. He says, "Do you guys?" This is I don't even know if this is a serious question or not, but I just want to get on it. He says, "Do you guys think that Georgia will kick the tires on Tate Martell as a transfer?" I'm gonna
need some QBs, man.
I'm gonna go with no on Tate Martell. I don't think that you'll be seeing him in red and black anytime soon.
Hey, Tate Martell's probably going to be on The Bachelor next week.
Listen, there was a lot of people were making a big stink about this tweet I put out last night, and I said if you were at the opening, when Fromm and Martell were on the same team, a lot of what's happening in college football wouldn't surprise you, and people were like, "Oh wow, go in depth. What does this mean?"
I was with
bad.
I know it wasn't.
I felt bad for the kid anytime I got it, and I applaud Manny Diaz from the standpoint of, they got a game in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I always felt like if you can name the quarterback, name him. No sense to get the team ready to go, get the defense understanding who your quarterback, build that confidence in that guy, And he didn't put it off. He's going with him, and that's more power to him. But
hey, congrats to Jaron Williams.
Jaron's a good player, man. Great player.
We covered that kid for years.
He's a player.
Got to love Central Gwinnett. Shout out to Todd Wofford.
Hey, I would think a lot of Georgia fans are pulling hard for the Miami Canes.
Yeah, I would think so. This from our friend Philip 08 Dog over on the board. He just hit his 1 year mark as part of the site. Thank you for being part of it at UGAsports.com,
Thank you, Philip.
He says, my question, do you think James Cook has more rushing or receiving touchdowns this season?
Rushing.
From Donnan's lips to your ears, friends.
I'll say receiving just so if it happens, I can lord it over the coach forever.
No, I think that you're going to see him used in a lot of ways.
I'd say he has 4 touchdowns over 50 yards, too, myself.
Wow.
Damn.
All right.
What do you think about it? You put that guy in there, it's you're in that red zone. He will scamper through and get a touchdown, but I'm thinking some of those passes to him in the flats, he takes them the distance, and all of a sudden he has 4 receiving touchdowns to 3 running touchdowns, and I get to claim victory.
Our guy Pine Tree over here on the board says, do we have any legit Heisman Trophy contenders on this team, any class and any Heisman year? So I feel like Zamir White could be at some point if the hype around him is real.
No.
It's early on that. It's not fair to go into individual awards, but we're going to have guys up for all these awards, and depending on how many games we're still in the game, will have a lot to do with Fromm's stats and all, and he's got some competition there with all these quarterbacks. But certainly Fromm and Swift are offensive guys.
Well, you have guys that will be on the list and maybe even get invited, but none of them are going to win it because Kirby and James Coley are not going to give one guy that much of the offense to run with, and it's always an offensive player.
Well, you don't need to.
Exactly, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying when you've got, you got 2 5-star running backs on the roster right now, and DeAndre Swift, who is 1 spot away from being a 5-star, who maybe
he's a starter.
Yeah, and maybe want to get that one back. You add Kendall Milton and maybe Evans. All of a sudden, you could have 4 5-star running backs on the team. With Swift going off to the NFL. Point being, you're not going to give one guy enough carries. You had 2,000-yard rushers, and neither one of them got consideration. So instead of having one 2,000-yard rusher, you're going to have a bunch of guys splitting it up.
I just say this. It's like Rafa Nadal said when they ask him about somebody, what if he did this? If doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
So I see a situation
There's no
where
such thing as if.
you have a ton of great players who are going to – the ball will be spread around. You're going to be playing for SEC titles, national championships. The Heisman would be nice, but it's an individual award. As long as you're getting guys winning Thorpe Awards, winning, you have another inside linebacker taking
you win the butt kiss.
You get an Outland Trophy winner, maybe a Remington winner. You're doing fine. Those are just as important, but the Heisman is too political, and you have to have gaudy numbers.
And
Kirby Smart's not into
You want
gaudy.
the SEC championship.
Give me that trophy.
And I
instead of that
can't see a situation too where a lot of these schools campaign, and I just don't see Georgia doing that. I really don't.
Well, the other
one. I think
thing, we're gonna
Clawfield
have-
did it one time, and
we're gonna
never
have
see it
some-
again.
big-ass runaway games, too.
Yeah, so all of a sudden you're up by 21. Do you leave him in there to run up the score? No, you're not going to do that.
For sure, you're not going to do it with Fromm this year.
No.
With even though Stetson's good, you're going to really protect him in these games.
Our guy Chuck Ward, loyal
Chuck.
member of the site, great questions always. Chuck says, do you think Nakobe Dean has passed Channing Tindall and Quay Walker, or is he just looked at as having a unique skill set that helps him see the field in specific situations?
He's right there just because of what he just said there about his unique. He's the same kind of guy that Pickens is. Pickens brings a unique skill set. Nakobe's got that eye for the ball, that sense, and he's has picked up things maybe a little quicker than those other guys. But Tindall and Walker are really competing hard, and you're seeing the experience that Monty and Crowder bring to the table. Our linebacker room is stronger than dirt.
Yeah, it's you gotta love what you're getting out of those guys right now for sure.
Speaking of strong, I want to give a big shout out to our friends over at Georgia Game Day Centers. We mentioned them at the start of the show. They are luxury condos. They are Georgia themed, top to bottom. You walk into the foyer. They got the red and black couches, giant TVs everywhere, beautifully appointed.
In the heart of downtown too.
If you're coming in for a Georgia game, and you just can't beat the idea of staying there, being able to walk to the stadium, then you're right there beside all the great restaurants downtown. You're a hop and a skip from the Last Resort. You're right by the 40-watt. Anything you want to do downtown, you don't need an Uber. You don't need a taxi. You just do whatever you want right there in the heart of downtown. And it's only not for game days. You can come in the summer. If you want to come in for graduation, it's a great time. You're having a wedding, come in then. Just reach out to the Georgia Game Day Center and hit those folks up, and they'll take care of you. And, again, I know it sounds weird, but I have to mention our friends over at Aaron Overhead Doors. They still have that 10% off deal for UGA fans. You just hit up the folks at Aaron Overhead Doors, let them know, hey, I need my garage door repaired, I need the opener repaired, I need anything fixed, I need it installed. They'll give you 10% off if you're a Georgia fan, and they're looking for a new installer. This is a company that's growing. And I saw on their Facebook page they had a ridiculous. They pay you more than I do. I guarantee you that.
I saw
they're hiring
Dash riding around one of those cars.
They actually pay a lot. I saw some of the benefits on there, and it's again, they hire employees, not contractors.
Yep.
They're not going to work some guy working out of his truck who's unreliable, who doesn't have a good sense of customer service. They're going to take you in, train you, and you will be an employee. They've had people there forever. So
and be honest with yourself. With this heat, you don't want to get out there and try to repair your garage door.
Well,
Exactly.
No, if you deal with the springs on one of those doors, you can kill yourself. The torque on those springs is ridiculous. And if you start screwing around with one of those and, a 200-pound door dropping on you, don't screw with an overhead door. They are dangerous. I know from experience. I worked with them. They suck. A garage door is a evil device.
Hey, go with the pros, man.
Let somebody do it, knows what they're doing.
Let's see if we can get 3 quick questions in a New York minute.
All right, Elko Dog says, Coach, thoughts on the running back room compared to other teams nationally?
Well, I think Alabama certainly had a bad situation with Sanders getting hurt last week. That's going to hurt them. But our stack up really, particularly if White continues to keep his health, I feel good about our running back room.
Robert Barnes, Coach, do you think Georgia will use more two-back sets if White keeps making progress?
We could see a little bit of that, but we've got such a good offensive line that the reason you would like to spread people out is where they have to take another guy and cover receiver and not put it in to stop the run. When you go to two backs, it's a little easier to defend inside with not worry about the perimeter. So I could see us using some different types of groupings, like put Cook in the game with Swift, but all of a sudden shift him out. So they think they can go to a power package and play another defensive lineman, but now all of a sudden you shift Cook out and he could be a slot or a wide receiver. I would see more 2 guys in the game, but maybe only 1 guy in the backfield.
All right, and Phil Rogers here with our third one.
Phil Rogers, he was a great short game guy in golf.
He says, Coach, how much do you think Georgia blitzes against Vandy?
You know, the thing that we'll see against Vandy with their good receiver and a good tight end and a good running back is they do have a new quarterback, so and a new play caller. So a lot of it be get a feel for it, but I could see pretty good pressure to make that quarterback prove that he can handle it. But we won't necessarily run what I call a butcher knife bandit, where you just come after everything. But I could see some zone blitz, some 5 and 6 man pressures. But we'll be a lot more of a pressure team than we have been.
I love it. There you go.
Did you like that connotation, butcher knife bandit?
One quick one here, too, from Brent Tucker over on our YouTube page. He says, do you think Tyreek Stevenson or DJ Daniel can take the other starting cornerback spot from Tyson Campbell?
You know, I don't think at this point they will, but I do feel like that both of these guys have had significant improvement throughout the spring. Both of them are very athletic. Daniels has a little more experience, but there's a lot to be said about Campbell because of some things he didn't do last year, but a lot of the coverages we played with him, we protected him because he was a freshman. But, I think Campbell's speed, size, athleticism is going to be hard to overtake. He's just he's much improved, and he's very talented. I mean, he's in the 1 percentile in the country as far as what you're looking for in the corner. So is Stevenson, and Daniels as maybe needs to be a little more consistent. And then, of course, Stokes, I mean, golly, he's got that catch-up speed. He can run so quickly. I mean,
one quick one here under the gun.
Watch out for Lewis Seen, too, man. Woo, I learned how to say his name, and I really want to tell you. Woo, he's doing a good job.
All right, one here, last one under the gun here. Josh Minyard, a couple people have asked about this, so I wanted to get your thoughts on it. He says, Coach, if Brenton Cox gets to play, do you think it will impact Florida's chances of winning against Georgia at all? Do you think that he carried anything over with him?
He's not going to be able to. When the guys plays for another team, they can certainly talk about personnel and all that, but I don't see it making that much difference as far as what the inside scoop that'll happen. But more power to him. But what I always said about any player that leaves, okay, you pour a little bit of that in your hand and then let it go, and that's how long you're going to miss them.
You didn't get to see the live demo if you're just listening to this on the podcast.
This is why you need to subscribe on YouTube at UGA Sports.
I like Brenton Cox. I just feel like he's there. We can't worry about him. I think Florida's got major concerns in the secondary with the guys they lost.
And on the offensive line.
Offensive line, maybe a little more athletically. They've only got guys that have played in 24 starts in their offensive line. And, I think Florida's not as good as they were last year, 1 through 44, but they got an experienced quarterback that's going to help them. And like I said, their schedule is going to be – the team that worries me is Missouri, because Missouri should have won 2 more games last year. They lost.
Very true.
They lost to – made 11 straight series against Kentucky. Just make 1 first down, they win that game. And then South Carolina, until they had the rain delay, they had that game won too. And they got the most of their defense back, plus that running back. And I think Missouri is going to be a tough challenge, although we got them here at home.
I tell you what, when you get to that Georgia-Florida game, do not forget how important that game is to Solomon Kinley.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
I rewatched the game. It came on the other day, like last Friday night, and I was watching. And every time Solomon knocked a guy to the ground, he jumped up. And I'm just saying, if you have that same ridiculous goal line stance that you did last year, just run the damn ball behind Solomon Kinley.
Well, there's a lot of things that happen on that. And if you UGA Sports, you'll find out that our backside didn't do the right thing. But I tell you, that game's important to one other person, too.
Kirby Smart.
Good answer.
I'm just saying. As important as that, everyone's like, well, Brendan Cox will have a chip on his shoulder. When you have a kid from Jacksonville like Georgia has in Salt McKinley.
Kirby spends a little time on the Gators every day.
Yeah, I bet he does. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for this week's show. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday. We will have more stuff for you. So from all the folks here at UGA Sports, we say thanks, and we'll see you later.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.